What's up? Happy podcast day, everybody. You know, it's been a minute, but we're back and, you know, better. And today, I got a very special guest here. I got my little brother, Dallas, you know, making his debut. How we doing, Dallas?
Pretty good. How are you?
Man, I'm good, you know. It's been a minute since, you know, I hopped on here, but I figured if I'm going to come back, I got to come back with a banger, okay? And I figured, you know, we've seen a little bit of the old faces and all those people around here, so you need to see somebody a little bit younger, you know, to resonate with you know, our younger audience, because a lot of your friends follow and they watch the podcast, and you actually promote us also very well, so we appreciate that, you know. But before we go on, make sure you like, subscribe, rate it, you know, tell us all the good things we're doing. You can keep the negative stuff away, you know, we all about positivity here. But you are quite the star right now, you know. People that don't know, you play high school soccer, okay? And you made the team. You made the varsity team as a freshman. Yeah. Okay. That's impressive. We're not going to talk about the people that didn't make the team and all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter, you know, who didn't make the team. Wink, wink. But how was it important for you to make the team, you know, as a freshman? Like, why, you know, how was it important for you?
Well, you know, dad, mom, they're both varsity players.
I know. You got to hear about it all the time.
Yeah, that's been like something I've like looked up to, you know. That's what I wanted to do when I was in high school.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, so you look up to them. I mean, the standard for this household is pretty high. Yeah. You know, didn't dad, you know, have like maybe 50 some goals, something like that in high school, but nobody cares about that kind of stuff. You're not going to talk about that. So the standard is very high in here. So it was important for you to, you know, so how was trials, you know, because I know like trials was after Thanksgiving. Yeah. And I know you ate a bunch of crap during Thanksgiving. You had to show up that week to go trials. So how was trials for you?
It was pretty good. I mean, I didn't really feel like I was dying because of the food and all that. You know, it was just a regular trial. And he made it to where it's kind of just like practice. So the practices that we did throughout the season were basically just tryouts. Okay.
And then I think he had seen y'all play. So, you know, I mean, I know you showed a little glimpses and all of that. You know, you a YouTube player. Y'all like to watch YouTube and watch Nameware and all of that. But, okay, so you make the varsity team. Now you play like Tuesdays and Fridays. Yeah. You know, like talk me through that whole process. So like I know like normally we wouldn't pick you up on Tuesdays or Fridays after school because you got to be with the team. So like, what is that process like? What is game day like? You know, for like high school soccer for people that don't know. You know.
Well, you know, I got to go to school still. You know, it's a long day. And then, you know, instead of just going home, we got to wait, you know. Wait like an hour, you eat your food.
So at least they give, you know, they provide food for you. Okay.
If it's a home game, we won't eat. You have to get your own food. Okay. And then, you know, the JV's playing, so we'll be in the indoor, and then we'll walk down there after the game. And then if it's an away game, we have to sit there and watch the JV. Okay, because you have to travel together. Yeah. Okay. And then at like 30 minutes, and like before the game ends, we start warming up, and then we'll take the field.
Okay. And, you know, y'all go, because y'all made the playoffs. Yeah. So definitely y'all kick some butt, you know, for sure. Y'all kick some butt for sure. So, you know, what is the playoff? Because I know, like, people that don't know, like, we get to watch, you know, and I watch the games. I watch, you know, y'all went to the second round of playoffs. Yeah. Impressive, you know, for a young team. So what is the difference between playoff games or playoff atmosphere and, like, you know, just regular season?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, like, you know, how is playoffs different from like regular season? Yeah.
It's like, it's more pressure on you, you know, because if you lose, like, you're done. One and done. But if you're playing in the season and you lose, like, it's just, you know, it's kind of just a loss.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, like, do y'all, like, practice a little bit more?
Yeah,
like,
it's more intense, you know, and he wants us doing stuff that we're, like, not good at. Like, throughout the season, we weren't good at, you know, set pieces, like defending set pieces. We would get scored on a lot. Right. So in practice, we did that for like an hour. Okay. Just, you know, free kicks, you know, picking up your runner and stuff. Like stuff like that, more intense.
Okay.
You know?
So, you know, and I know like playoffs is also doing spring break, so you had to go to school. You know, how do you feel about, you know, having to go in, you know, when everybody else is like chilling at home? But
it wasn't really like because we practice in the morning, and then I have my whole day, so it just kind of felt like a regular
FIFA, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. So second round, unfortunately we lost, that game. Whatever. What are your goals for next season?
Next season, I wanna make it farther in the playoffs.
Okay.
We made it to the second round, but I feel like, we're next year we have a chance that we could go a little farther than that.
So what about individual goals?
Mm-hmm. Probably start. That's I want to start because I started 2 games this year because we have people out and stuff, and it's a great feeling, and I want to be I want that role, I want to be a starter. I want to be a varsity starter.
Okay, you wanted to put it on you.
Yeah.
Okay, and you did score goals. I mean, what we had 2 goals?
It was 1 goal, 2 assists.
1 goal, 2 assists. We're not gonna talk about what I did or what I didn't do, but I just want you to know, impressive. I had my thing, number 21 on the field, number 1 in my heart. So I definitely love watching you play. So what's up with this? What is Michigan State? Michigan State, we live in Texas, bro. Come on, Texas State, baby. What's going on?
Their soccer program, and it's not just Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
I love Michigan too, because there's this one player on Instagram that plays for Michigan, and he just got drafted to the MLS, and he's a really good player. So
I guess that is important for you to because you want to not just play high school.
Yeah, I want to go to college.
College and play. Okay, so. I mean, let's say somebody's watching okay, well, we're raving about Dallas and his team. Where can we find your stuff to watch too,
Oh, I have an Instagram.
Hey, tell us, shameless plug. Plug it in, baby.
All right.
So what's that Instagram right now? Tell us.
Pull up. Dallas, all lowercase.
Okay.
DALLAS _ K21.
Okay, so Dallas _ K21. Go on Instagram. Go follow that Instagram account, and watch my little brother Dallas. I'm waiting for you to take it into to newer heights, bigger heights, and then you can take me out, so I don't gotta work. So, Bob, I appreciate you for doing this.
Yep.
I know club season is back. Hopefully, we will circle a little bit. I think you're already gonna be a fan favorite. So let's start putting in plans and having you back and talk about your fake teams you support and all of that. Wow, thank you, man. Appreciate you for coming, man. Yes, sir. Love you, man. All right, y'all. So Dallas was in here. We will segue and bring in other guests and continue the episode. All right. You good? Yes. All right. Welcome, Mr. SK.
Welcome.
It's good to have you.
Glad to be here. Did you have a good conversation with Dallas?
I did. Dallas, telling me all about high school soccer and all of that. So that was a great time. He said he enjoyed it, so that's good. But
it's a fun season.
It is. So we've had a lot going on. I'm gonna tell people what it is. That way you don't have to say it and skew it, mess it up. So March, Mom had an idea of doing a March Madness, bracket. And unfortunately I picked UNC to go all the way down and win it, and it was you, me, Mom, Dallas, and Daisy, and after a couple of days, it was not looking good at all, and I don't even think it's still looking good. I think I'm out.
What for you?
Yeah, but you and Daisy are kind of up there, and I didn't have, I couldn't hear the end of that, man.
Yep.
So that's what's been going on in the Conco household. What else you been up to, man? It's been a minute. The last time we were here, it's been a month.
I mean, it's been busy because filming day is when obviously they're playing high school games, and so and then obviously we've started club practice back up.
Yep.
He has club practice. Obviously we're coaching the team, so we have our practices, and just makes it very difficult to try to get filming sessions in.
Yep.
Obviously these aren't long episodes, and we try to make them pretty quick. But you try to get 30 minutes when you can. Your brain's fried, and
I know. We have long days, and now also with the time changes, shorter days, longer nights. Because it's spring and going into summer, so it's kind of hard to fit it in. But we will go ahead and try and get this out of the way pretty quick. The first thing we will just go into is the drafts. that's been coming along here in about 3 weeks. So the draft, and then the combine surprises. Okay, so the big one that we've spoken about it outside of the podcast is how Matthew Golden's stock has literally rose.
Yeah,
and we talked about how he was number 2 on his team, but he run crazy fast at the combine, and now all of a sudden there's even chat about him to the Cowboys, and potential first round. I mean, no potential. I think he's going for first round for sure. Yeah. So, what do you think that's all that about? What is all that about Matthew Golden? Because you are a big Longhorn fan and watch all their games.
Yeah, and he during the season, obviously when you had Bond kind of go down with that ankle injury, never really came back to 100%. He took over.
Yep.
He took over the load. You still had the tight end who obviously played very, very well. But when you see these guys, and obviously they have a good senior year. Not senior year, he could have came back, but he had a good year with Texas. He came from Houston, so he transferred, had a strong season in the SEC. Made some big plays in the playoff for him. And then
I remember that touchdown against Arizona.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you get into the combine and you hear some of the guys start, hey, there's this Golden kid, and the reason you kind of follow him, for us, is because he, gets linked to the Cowboys. They not necessarily that they're going to pick him, but they brought him in for meetings, and then you start looking at what he did at the combine. Obviously, fastest receiver there, and you kind of look at. When you compare his 40 time, you look at the receivers from Texas, that obviously you had Worthy last year. You had, Bond's he's gonna be drafted. But the thing about Golden is, with CD, he's kind of that slasher, and they isolate him, get him the ball in space, get him, get the ball in his hands early, and you had Cooks who. Made some plays here or there, but obviously he's gone. You don't really have a wide receiver that can separate. Dak Prescott needs that because, you look at the other kid from Arizona who they're high on. Bigger frame, more of a possession receiver. But what you think about is Dak Prescott doesn't like to throw the ball when he doesn't see the receiver a step out in front, or that he's breaking open.
And McMillan, that's the name. Yeah, Ted McMillan. I don't know how to say his first name right.
Yeah, so. And what Golden brings is that he's very, very sharp on his cuts. He's a very lightning quick through his break. Obviously, he has the speed.
Okay.
He's not the tallest. Obviously, you got some guys that are 6'4", 6'5", that are going to be looked at more.
Even
in today's game.
It doesn't matter. I'm tall receiver, too lanky, and can cut and all of that. So,
Yeah, and when you take all that and then go back and look at some of his games, the hands are there. He's made some outstanding catches, tough catches in traffic, over-the-shoulder catches towards the sidelines, and you put all that together, and a guy sneaks up there, and all of a sudden he's in the first round and potentially, going to the Cowboys. Whether that happens or not, we won't know, but just for that, him going in as a probably late second round, maybe third rounder, and all of a sudden now he's up at the top of the board is pretty
That's
cool.
Impressive. Yeah. And, so I guess, we were just talking about the Cowboys first and second round picks. Cowboys need a lot, okay? Thanks to Jerry Jones and whatever they're doing over there, we need a lot. This team is Jesus. I mean, we don't want to get into all of that right now. But, so I guess in your ideal world, Cowboys, Matthew Golden, maybe on a 12,
Yeah.
We'll bring back the love.
I think Golden at 12 because this draft is so deep.
For running backs.
Well, not just running backs, but line of scrimmage both sides.
Yep.
It's limited, obviously, on quarterbacks. There's not a ton of wide receivers. The other parts of the draft, it's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So I think they take the option that they have up front with a weapon. If it, obviously, if it wasn't Golden, if they took a running back, I think they solidified they're not going to take a QB in the later, later rounds because of the Milton.
Yeah, so they just traded for Milton.
Yeah, so I think you take the weapon, Again, if it's not Golden, if it's the other receiver, I think you take that option first, and then you can get some other guys since this draft is so deep at the other positions. Okay. So,
well, and so there's been chat. Shedeur Sanders slipping a little bit.
Yep.
You think that he could go to the Giants at 3? It's just hard for me with the Giants signing, Russell Wilson, and they have they also signed for the funny guy,
I don't even remember who the other guy
they
is.
also signed him, and then they have Tommy DeVito on that team. So I don't know how they go and draft another quarterback, but today they actually at Colorado Pro Day. Shane was there, and then the coach Dabo was also there. Yeah. So maybe he does, but how you feel about it slipping, or do you think it's really a real thing that he's slipping?
I think it's a real thing if he doesn't get picked up, between the Browns or the Giants.
The Giants, because
Cam Ward's going 1,
yeah.
And it's not about the best quarterback, because I think positionally Shedeur is better. Mm-hmm. It's about the Titans and how much of a mess their offensive line is, and obviously Ward, more athletic, makes a few more plays with his feet. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's a good quarterback to get out of the pocket. Make some of those arm angle throws where it's not 90 degrees. He's getting down there at 45 and a few sidearm passes, and he can make the throws on the run. He'll force the ball into traffic here and there, but for the Titans, it's that's a lock for him.
So it's about fits.
Yep. And then there's been chatter about the Browns, taking Carter, which if they
Abdul Carter, yep.
It was interesting. I was kind of listening to a little bit of the mess that the Browns created over the past many years, and it's because they've always overreached for a quarterback. Yeah. They've always tried to get that quarterback. They've either moved up, traded, they've been terrible, so they had top picks, and they've always taken those guys. And I think this year, at least from what I'm hearing or seeing, reading, is that
your
they don't want to do that.
What your sources are telling you?
The sources are telling me no. But you start looking at it as Carter gives them a much better. If they bring in a quarterback, Shedeur ain't getting them to the playoffs.
Probably not.
If they get Carter, and now you're going to have to double either, one side or the other.
Oh, Lord.
That defense immediately becomes better, and that's what they're going to have to build on in order to get to the playoffs anyways. When they were playoffs, 2 years ago when they were good, it was because they had a solid defense.
Yeah, so maybe bring in another guy again.
So I think what the chatter is, there's a lot that's going to have to go into it. Is that them taking Carter and then trading to move back into the first round to get him in the later round in the later first round pick. So still he's slipping, but. Yeah, if they don't trade back in and they want to go Carter, which is probably the right pick, it's gonna be difficult, because if he gets past those two,
it's hard. He gets past 1, 2, 3. I think the chat has been Steelers.
Yep.
Which is all the way at like 21 or 22. So yeah, I mean that would be a big one.
Yep.
So pivoting, I want to talk to you about a little bit of like sports atonement. I mean, we talk a lot about sports in here and all that kind of stuff. What is something, like an opinion that you've had about sports, or a take that you've had that, you're like, what? I've come around to this take that I had, I want to change this, or, I was clearly wrong on this. Do you have anything that you can remember that, or anything Unpopular that you have?
I think, not so much that I've had to come back around and say, that I've been wrong on. Probably the player that I remember thinking there's no way this guy doesn't go in the NFL and break records. And
I think I know where this is going.
Reggie Bush is mine.
Oh, okay.
Reggie Bush is mine.
I was thinking Manziel.
No, I never. Just because of the situation.
Okay.
Just because of the situation, had I known what all he was doing behind the scenes, that's an easy, one. But no, Reggie Bush, I thought was going to go into the NFL, be a Hall of Famer, win some playoff games, maybe a Super Bowl, but definitely rushing titles. And, he had some good seasons in there, but I remember the very first play of the first real game, not preseason
the one
game,
he got popped.
where he got absolutely obliterated, and it was a welcome to the NFL moment.
Well, man, I think he talks about that. Yeah.
And then he had some injuries, and was out for a little while, missed games, just never got back. And again, had some good years. I think it was with the Lions. He ended up having some decent years, but when he played college, obviously I followed him. They ran into Texas in the national championship game in 2005. Watched that game, but I watched other games, those 2 years, and just thought he was going to be great, and he did not.
This is one that I have that I can think of that I actually put down. I think you actually like this one. Is, I think I've come around to understand that winning is secondary to Cowboys ownership.
Yeah.
I have, you used to be like, you used to tell me, don't get too caught up in there, they worry, Jerry's worried about his money and all of that. And, I'm like, because I can understand how you own a team and you would not want them to be as successful, like on the field, as you would want them to be like a brand. But I've come, with what has happened the last 2-3 seasons with the Cowboys, how they've managed, free agency and all of that, you cannot convince me otherwise that winning is not secondary.
When he made the move many years ago to get rid of Jimmy, that's where the first thought of, why would you get rid of a coach, regardless of your issues between each other, when the guys went in Super Bowls? And it all came down to control, power, and then obviously money comes with that, and that's it. It's marketing, it's business, and winning comes second.
Unfortunately,
maybe second,
right?
That's debatable, but for sure, one is being popular, relevant, whatever word you want to put in there, and then winning is secondary. If they win playoff games, that winning helps number one, but they've been number one without winning, and they're still there, still most valued franchise, still
valued sports franchise in the world. So quick one on this one. So a lot of chatter, in the NFL off season. It's not a whole lot to do in the off season. Tush push is apparently, they're tabling it for later. 16
out of the 32 so far are supporting the banning of it.
To ban it. Quick take on that. What do you think? Push tush? We ban it or not? You for or against?
I would say no, because you've created something, number one, that nobody can stop.
Competitive advantage,
whatever you want to call it. If you don't want it to happen, figure out a way to stop it. And if they have created a play that's impossible to stop,
you can't.
Everybody can run it.
You can't stop
Everybody can run it.
You cannot. Not everybody has a quarterback that benches 600 pounds or like deadlifts 600 pounds and all of that.
My thing is there are certain rules in the game that it's change the rule, change this, change that. But this is not a rule; it's a play. And I don't like Philadelphia at all. But again, they've created something that everybody's mad about, and it reminds me of basketball.
Right.
There used to not be a shot clock.
Right.
Teams would score 2 points, 4 points, and then hold the ball the rest of the game. Everybody, shot clock came in. Okay, that's cool.
Right.
Then dunking. You know, white guys can't dunk, so everybody gets mad. There's a movie that if you haven't seen it, and everybody whoever hasn't, it's Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell. It's a stupid movie where he's a semi-pro basketball owner, but also plays on the team. He's like a player manager, and they have a scene in that movie where they throw the first alley-oop pass. And the referee blows the whistle and runs out on the court and he yells foul. And they're like, what? Wait a minute, why is it? It just makes me think of things like that when there becomes a situation, a play, whatever it is that, you know, people can't stop or certain teams can't duplicate. Then it's an issue. So,
okay, well. Listen, I got a lot of Philadelphia fans, you know, talk about how, you know, I was being honest and all. So, you know, I'm not going to get into it and all of that. It's just, you know what, it is what it is. How is that any different from the switch to, you know, the technology for the first downs? How is that any different from VAR and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, because one's a rule, the other's a play. One's, you know, if it was a play
that's actually fair.
That they were reviewing because of, you know, for example, the guys that were lining up too wide on offense, or they were below the belt of the tackle for the offensive offside.
Right.
That's fine because that's a competitive advantage. It's in a play, but it's also a rule that they institute. There's no rule against what they're doing. They're just doing it different than, you know, everybody else has ever done.
It's such an ugly play, but it's so freaking effective, man. Jesus.
Yep. So, you know, I think it will be banned.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, if it was me, figure out a way to stop it. Or if you can't stop it, figure out a way to run it with your own guys.
Okay. Well, figure out a way to stop it, you know. So, hopefully next time we will get into, you know, we would get into like Cowboys win over and under. Okay. Last year before we started the podcast, we did our own win-loss record.
Yeah.
And you were much closer than I was because I think you actually had them right for.
It was close. It was either right on or I had them winning one more game.
I think it was either A, and I think
I obviously didn't predict that. I predicted that with Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
So, but still,
right.
You know.
So subsequent weeks we're gonna do, you know, our win-loss for the Cowboys. You know, get some drive grades and see how the drive unfolds.
Yep.
We still got to get into our coaching episode, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just happy to be back.
Yep.
You know, put content out there, so we'll figure everything out. But thank you for coming. Thank you to Dallas also for showing up today. And, you know, we'll see you on the next episode, guys. Right. So, like, subscribe, rate. You know what? We'll see you on the next one. Daphne, why are you laughing? All right, bye.